All right, it's time to make your relationships even stronger in 2020. We have certified sex coach Kristen Thomas here to share resolutions to help couples get real and get results. I almost feel like we were introducing the real world there on MTV for a second. So I'll talk about my wife and I's relationship real quick, and then I'm going to stop because none of y'all want to hear about that. But when we got married, you go through marriage counseling, and the pastor told us, there's two things you're going to fight about. It's going to be money and sex, right?
He was right.
So how do we discuss these emotional topics, or people can get emotional about, without getting so angry?
Well, that's the key, right? You want to have these serious conversations without it boiling over.
Yeah, without it turning into an argument.
Exactly. I mean, there's important things that probably all of us have heard. The things like use I statements. I feel this. Don't be accusatory. You need to also make sure you're not using never and always, like you never do the dishes and I always do these things. Make it more concrete, because if you're saying never and always, your partner's going to come up with that one time they did that thing, and then it just boils over into an argument.
goes away from there, right?
Exactly. And you know your partner best, so try to have these conversations at times where you feel like they're open to communication, whether it's a car ride or over dinner, or after sex.
Yeah, that was my next question. Like, where do you approach them at? I mean, you talked about, maybe in the car, so you're away from someone at a neutral location, or do you do it over dinner at a restaurant, dinner at home?
Either way. I mean, a lot of times the reason couples aren't having these vulnerable conversations is because they aren't taking enough time to be just together, the two of them. So they don't get the time to have these serious conversations.
Okay.
I do think it's best to not have these conversations. Like, if you want to talk about your sex life, don't talk about it in the middle of it or right after.
Probably
if you want to
not.
talk about money, don't talk about it when you just opened a big bill or you just had something spill over from that.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about things when they're calm and you've got some time alone.
Little bit way to take a step back, have a bigger picture at the topic. Let's talk about prioritizing. How do we get to prioritize these different topics that we want to talk about with our significant other?
Well, it's really important to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I think it can be important to also think of it in the sense of, like, you're trying to strengthen your relationship. So talk about things like, I would like to blank. Would it be okay if we tried these things? You talk about it in the context, like Esther Perel recommends, of like the positives.
Okay.
You need to be saying what you want to do, not what you don't want to do or what you're not liking about the relationship status.
Again, positioning and making sure you use the I words, but then asking it in a way that, okay, I get it. I see what you're talking about here. Now let's also talk about resolutions. Always get dropped.
Yeah.
These are things that we need to focus on continually during our relationships, right? And make sure they last past January. What are some tips on lengthening these and making sure they go for the full year, for our full relationship?
That's a really good question. I think that it's really important to start setting like small goals so they can end up having a big change. And I think Dr. Michelle Robin for that, the idea of small changes leading to big shifts. Things like giving a genuine compliment to your partner every day. You can support each other with your self-care routines. If it's important for your partner to start off their day with 10 minutes of meditation, find a way to help support them with that.
Yeah. Keep the kids away while they go in the other room and have their 10 minutes.
Exactly. Maybe you need to renegotiate your household routine and talk about who's doing what. Also, I think it's important to look at your sleep. Are you getting good sleep together? What's your space like? Is it set up and conducive for romance? Maybe you need a feng shui expert to come in and talk to you. But ultimately, I think that you need to just talk about the things that you really want, not what you don't want.
Talk about what you want and what you don't want. If there's anything you're taking away from this conversation, that's what I'm going to take away. What I want and what I don't want.
Don't say what you don't want. Focus on what you do want.
Okay.
Yes, focus on the positives.
And I know there are several books that you've recommended here to some folks. What are some of those that we can check out?
Oh, there's so many. I always recommend Esther Perel's Mating in Captivity for every couple, as well as The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. You might also want to check out Hold Me Tight. That's by Sue Johnson. Or Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. And The Power of Vulnerability or anything else by Brené Brown can also help improve
Brené
your
Brown has
relationship.
several good podcasts and some of the, I can't think of what the name of it is right now, but they have them on Spotify. If you look up her name.
Oh, Brené Brown is everywhere. So is Esther Perel.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, wonderful. It was great to get to talk to you again. I hope you're having a fantastic 2020 so far.
Same to you.
And good tips for your relationships.